I think it's super, super important to have the balance, right? This is something that I have lost sight of on numerous occasions. And I know people who didn't even go to uni and they're some of the most successful designers just because they make cool work and they posted it on Instagram and people saw it. And you can appreciate all kinds of different stuff, but don't necessarily feel like you have to hold yourself up to other people's standards and stuff. I guess, yeah, I was always doing art and stuff. Like my mum always encouraged that from super early. It was always my favorite thing at primary school, secondary school. And yeah, graphic design specifically, I was kind of looking at that from GCSE age onwards, pretty early doors. So yeah, studied graphic design at A level. I did a graphic design specific foundation course, and then went on to do it at St Martin's for a bachelor degree. Yeah. So that was the route in terms of education. And then there was a bit of a gap where I wasn't really sure if I could be a graphic designer or if I had the talent or whatever, and I kind of took a little bit of a breather from it. This is straight after graduating from uni.
What was that?
I don't know, man. I had a strange time at uni. I think I was so gassed to get into St Martin's, or just to get into a London uni.
Was it St Martin's? It's
St Martin's.
Yeah. I mean, it was a bit of a strange one. The way it happens, I hadn't really. It was not my original idea to go there. I just wanted to go to London in general because I grew up in the West Country, but I knew London was where it was at in terms of art, music, culture, etc. So I just wanted to go to a London uni. It's a very competitive place, and yeah, a lot of people on the course, and I think I don't know, it maybe wasn't the right place for me. I definitely I'm grateful for my time there, and I think it has opened some doors potentially. It's a great name, it rings out on CVs and stuff. But yeah, I kind of left that experience with maybe a bit of a deficit in my confidence as a designer and stuff.
Yeah.
And there was a 4-year period after graduating where I had almost low-key given up on being a designer. And I worked in retail and stuff. I did the odd bit of freelance work, but yeah. And then I don't know. Just randomly, a friend of mine saw that there was an internship position going at Rinse FM, which was for me, being someone who's super into music, always been a graphic designer, always wanted to somehow marry the two. That was dream role at that time. And then, yeah, having had this huge kind of break, during this time where I say I had a break, I was low-key, I was working on a CV portfolio, trying to get things together and trying to pull something together of my own work that would help me to get out of retail and get into design again. But yeah, luckily for me, I got the internship and then things kind of just snowballed from there.
Looking at your work as well, a lot of it is linked to music. Is that how it all began? Just working from... Yeah.
Even when I was at uni, I was focusing on trying to combine the two, music and visual art. So yeah, it's just always been a focus for me. I don't quite remember where it started. If I had to kind of try and piece it together, maybe something when I was a kid, I remember seeing the Chris Cunningham videos for Aphex Twin and stuff like that. And I remember being oh, okay, so you can have a really interesting visual that marries up with really interesting music, right? And wouldn't that be a cool thing to do? But so yeah, it just seems to be the niche that I've managed to fall into and stay in. I mean, it's not the only thing I do. I work on stuff outside of the music industry, but if I look at my full-time roles, both of them have been music related. And I would say 90% of what I do now as a freelancer is all to do with music and the music industry.
That's cool. At any point, before, because it seems like you quite defined a role within your graphics and what you're doing with music, but at any point did you feel like you had to, I feel for a lot of graphic designers, freelance graphic designers that are doing work to make money, corporate work, you kind of have to sacrifice the creativeness and kind of limit off your creativity. Did you ever come across any kind of things like that throughout your?
100%. I mean, it's every project to some extent.
Okay.
You have to,
Even now, still.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the nature of the beast, I guess. Like working with clients, things are never going to be.
Something.
Yeah, you've always got to like curtail your ideas to some extent. You've got to shape what you would do to what the client wants you to do, and hopefully, if you're lucky, there's a happy middle ground there.
Right.
But yeah, not always. I mean, the more commercial, the more corporate the project or the client, the chances are you're less likely to be able to get your voice across.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, generally speaking, I'm quite lucky. It's just one of the reasons why I like working in dance music as well, because like a lot of the time, especially with like smaller nights or raves and things like that, people are quite open to aesthetics that are a little bit more out there,
Right?
Less mainstream and stuff, and so you do get the opportunity to play around with.
But even then, with music and different genres of music, you have different styles within those genres too in design. No?
Yeah.
That I find really interesting.
How do you like stay true to your style then? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting thing because like personally, I don't even know if I have a style. I don't feel like I have, and I don't necessarily look at like my work, and I can't always see the thread between everything.
Yeah.
But then other people.
You can't see the Ross Aitken.
Yeah, like, I don't know if people necessarily would see a piece of mine without my name and label attached to it and be like, oh, that's obviously by Ross, right? But like other people will say they can. So I don't know if it's not necessarily something that I'm thinking about when I approach a project. Like, oh, how can I make this look and feel like me or feel authentic to me?
Yeah.
I feel like your work has always just got like a certain standard of quality. I don't know, I feel like you've done your research and it's like, I don't know, there's always quite nice like strong lines and stuff in your work.
Appreciate that, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's other things that like, you can't avoid doing them. They're like a force of habit. They have no brains. So like certain things will come across. Like even if I tried to do it differently, I feel like.
But that is style then. That is like personal style.
I guess that is what you would call a style, right?
Yeah.
Because like I'm not necessarily thinking about it, but I'll end up going to the same color palettes or similar fonts or similar layouts because that's just like my comfort zone, right?
For sure.
So yeah, those things they tend to find themselves into the work whether you want them to or not. Some of them I would love to maybe change, but it's
still your style, I guess, and that you carry forward with different sort of projects. And I do have to say too with clients as well, and working with clients, not a lot of times as an architecture student, way back then too, it's not like we can kind of design based on the way we want it to
Whatever
be.
you want to do.
It will change, but certain things, I guess, you can still push through.
Yeah,
I guess within sort of realms.
Totally.
Also, I feel like your mixed ethnic background is a unique blend of Scottish, English, and Nigerian.
Yeah.
How has your cultural heritage influenced your creative work and your perspective as a designer?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think definitely, culturally speaking, I think music was like a big part of. Like so, like on my mum's side, my Nigerian family, there's like a lot of musicians there, and my mum is really big into music, and from like a really young age, she was showing me music, like some music that I still like and listen to today.
Oh, I love that.
And I think that had a big impact. It's probably the reason why music is like So definitely on that side, I don't know if like aesthetically speaking, I can say. There's like too much evidence of my culture, other than just being immersed in the British culture that I have literally lived in day in day out. I know that's definitely had an impact. I'm like someone who's like chronically online, so I feel like I'm constantly absorbing
doom scroll.
Doom scrolling forever. But my Instagram is largely it's creatives that I'm following. So I'm looking at people's art and constantly taking stuff in and pinning stuff, saving stuff. So there's that for sure. Like just being part of the kind of general design ecosphere on Instagram. But then other than that, I'm interested in fine art and I'm interested in fashion, music, like we already talked about, being in like club space or just like being immersed in like the club culture that's happening now rather than necessarily like the old stuff, but like seeing what's going on in London and being a part of that. And then even just down to like I don't know, anyone who follows me on Instagram will know my Insta stories are like 90% me just posting pictures of just random junk that I see. A nice texture on a wall, or like, you know, it's a glass with a bit of an old sticker that's come off, and I'm like, oh, that looks nice. Like that kind of stuff. Yeah, I find myself just like documenting, saving, sharing, and like, you know, maybe one day I'll use it for a poster or something.
That's cool.
But yeah, so everywhere, I draw inspiration from
Sometimes
everything.
I feel like what you're saying about absorbing so much, especially on Instagram and stuff like that. Sometimes I feel like almost related to when you're in Central St. Martin's, where it's like sometimes you're exposed to like so much quality work all the time that sometimes I can feel a bit like overwhelmed by how much.
100%. Not comparing yourself.
For sure.
Like, you know, you might appreciate someone's work is like vastly different to yours, and sometimes you might be like, oh, I want my work to be more like that. But then I feel like you'll end up chasing your own tail if you go too far down that route. You know, it's not, you can appreciate all kinds of different stuff, but don't necessarily feel like you have to hold yourself up to other people's standards and stuff.
Also, like going back to talking about like working with clients, working in the corporate world, do you actually get two questions? Do you have personal projects you do just for your own fulfillment? And what projects have you done that you put out that you're not a fan of? You don't have to name names.
That's another question.
Like, if you can give percentages of how much work you actually put out in comparison, that'd be really cool to know.
Okay, so the first question, personal projects, I try to, and I intend to be moving forward, like way stricter with myself, to sticking to like doing at least one a week. It doesn't have to be something big, but just like, yeah, just trying to like, I don't know, because sometimes I do feel that where I'm just constantly working for clients, you sometimes end up just kind of reiterating techniques that you've already, you know, tried and tested, and it's just easier and it's faster to work that way, right? When you've got deadlines and stuff. But in terms of learning new things, developing a style and stuff like that, I think definitely personal projects help. And yeah, so I really do want to get into the habit of doing a lot more of that. At the moment, it's kind of the few and far between, but yeah, I like the idea of doing them, and I do occasionally do stuff. And if I do, I usually tend to mention that as a personal project when I share it on Insta.
Cool.
Yeah. But so that was question number one. Question number two. Yeah, so much work. It depends what you mean by put. Depends what you mean by like put out there. Like, I mean, I've worked on tons of stuff that like I wouldn't put on my Instagram or like necessarily put my name to. But you know, also even stuff that I have put on my Instagram, there's loads of stuff on there that I don't necessarily think speaks volumes about like what I'm into. But you know, maybe it's for a client that I want to brag about working for, or maybe it's just a case of trying to feed the Instagram algorithm.
The algorithm.
Like work that you like at a moment in time, and after a while, you're a totally different person. You know,
100%. Like, yeah, looking back across I mean, there's loads of stuff that I did ages ago that I'm still proud of, but like you can see where your taste has maybe changed or developed a bit. So in answer to your question, there's plenty of that stuff.
That's funny. What's your like highlight? What's the best project that you've worked on?
That's a good question. Definitely really proud of some of the stuff that I did during my time at Broadwick Live. So like that's the company that oversees like Printworks, Field Day Festival, the depot in Manchester where Warehouse Project is, a bunch of other stuff. And yeah, like one of the main focuses whilst I was there was Printworks, and we did some really cool, really interesting advertising campaigns for the club. One of which you were mentioning in the intro, that's the one that won the award, working with a studio called OMSI, a really great design studio. So stuff like that, I would say,
It's your highlight.
Yeah, really proud of. And you know, those are the projects that I feel like a lot of people got to see. You know, they had like the most eyes on them probably because that brand has a lot of followers. So yeah, I would definitely say something like that.
That's cool.
Really nice.
Yeah.
And can you tell us more about your personal creative projects? I know you do music production, is what I've also realized.
I dabbled in that, but I don't say much.
I dabbled.
I used to
tell me about that.
I used to muck around with it for sure. Yeah. And the way I started getting more busy, working as a full-time designer, it became harder for me to do that. Also, it's just hard to make good music, man. I'm in awe of people who can produce well. It takes so long to get good at it. Like, honestly, I'm not the most patient person, and where I'm just like, oh man, why does this still sound like I started yesterday? You know, I had to give up on that. But I want to go back to that. I definitely want to go back to that. Yeah, but I this is actually quite an important thing. I think it's super, super important to have the balance, right? This is something that I have lost sight of on numerous occasions, especially since going freelance, where I was just like, let me just agree to every single project that comes through the door and make as much money as possible, because you don't know when the next project is coming. And like, that is something I have started trying to not do as much of recently, and make room for personal projects. Doing anything other than
going away, or like going and like having trips, or just having room for play is really important. I think you can find inspiration in places that you were not expecting to find it in.
For sure.
Especially where if you're a creative and your passion is also your primary source of income, it can feel definitely. Because like, if I wasn't a designer, probably I'd be making visual art as a hobby. But it ends up being it's all in one, right? So sometimes I don't feel like I need a hobby. I'm like, no, but I love doing this. Yeah. But really and truly, like, when it's your day job, you should be doing something else on the side. Yeah. So it isn't the only thing you think about from the moment you get up and go to sleep, you know.
Because having a break from it like feeds your creativity. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you'll go back stronger to it. You know? And that's kind of tends to be the time where you have ideas. Like, when you're in the midst of a project, you're not necessarily thinking outside the box. You're just focused on the task at hand. So I feel like you kind of need to step away sometimes to give your brain space to breathe.
What barriers have you come across in your line of work, if any?
I feel like probably the biggest barriers that I've had have maybe been to myself, in terms of like confidence, or mainly that. Like I said before, like I there was like a 4-year period after graduating where I didn't apply for jobs. I applied for a few jobs after I left uni, and then I got a bit disheartened, and then I was like, I don't even know if I'm good. Yeah, I want to work on stuff before I like try and put myself out there again. But like, really and truly, I probably should have been pushing myself. I would say that is, it can still be a barrier to this day. I see opportunities, maybe I don't go for them, or I'll make excuses of like, maybe I'll apply for that another time or something like that. Those are barriers that I face daily. I think it's having the confidence to like do your thing.
Confidence comes with growth, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely. I feel like definitely when things like started to kind of heat up a bit for me was like once I started putting myself out there on Instagram, sharing my work,
sharing, I guess,
getting eyes on it. Because it kind of goes back to what I was saying about confidence. It's like there was a while where I was like, I don't really want to put anything out there yet. It's a bit daunting. It's a bit spooky. But then once I started doing it and I started getting positive feedback from people, and also started to get new work coming through the door, that gave me confidence to keep putting it out there, and it all starts, it's like self-perpetuating.
Very consistent with it as well, hey?
Yeah. Definitely. And do you know what? I was lucky enough to start putting myself out there and putting myself on Instagram before the algorithm and things changed and it became harder. Like, I was finding an audience really easily to begin with, and now I have to be a little bit more focused on like the boring side of things, like when I post and the regularity and all of these little things that you need to do to play the game, right? But I would definitely say, social media is your friend. Like, if you're starting out as a designer, and I know people who didn't even go to uni and they're some of the most successful designers just because they make cool work and they posted it on Instagram and people saw it, and now they're working in some of the best companies around.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, great. It's been fab time having a chat with you. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me do my first ever interview. It's cool.
Yeah. Lovely.
Appreciate it. Thanks.